Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been waiting for the right panel to come along for several years now. So I'm going to only ask one question. I'm going to carry you through, and it's something that's very personal to me because I was elected to the Senate in 1994. My first year was 1995. 1995, they came up with the idea that we've had the old Paladin system for many years. It's old World War II technology. And we needed to have something that would really be substantial, really protect our kids out there. And they came out with the Crusader. That was 1995. In fact, let me get the timeline down here so I'm accurate on it. In 1995, it's when they approved to commence the program. And the first prototype, this is a howitzer, was, and you're all familiar with this, of course, was in the year 2000. Then in 2002, after some $2 billion had been spent, it was terminated. Now, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. But I can't blame the Democrats on this because this was done with Rumsfeld and the Bush administration. In fact, it was so seriously considered that one of, you remember the Congressman J.C. Watts, he actually retired from the House of Representatives because he was so upset with spending 7 years on a program and then dropping the thing. And at that time, $2 billion seemed like a lot. Well, then we go through this thing and carry it through. They say, all right, we need to have something that's lighter. The Crusader started out at 65 tons, ended up at 40 tons. They went into bringing it down to 18 tons. They said, no, that's not heavy enough to offer the protection that's necessary. So we dropped that program, started the Endless cannon, non-line of sight cannon. That was one that was they brought down to 18 tons because they wanted to make sure they could transport it on a C-130. And so we went through all this program, and finally, at the end of the period of time, they went into, that was part of the FCS program. Then they dropped that one. And as the chairman mentioned in his opening remarks, that was a $20 billion program that we'd already spent on that. Now, the interesting thing is they brought the weight down. We're now going back to a part of an improved Paladin, the PIM system. And what's the weight of that? It's right back up to where the Crusader was. It's 40 tons. Now, what I'd like to ask you, and I know you can't do it here, but I'd like to have your opinions on the record later on, getting around to it, as to how we went through that chronology, that transition. Because you start a program, the requirements really didn't change that much. Because the requirements were, it's got to be transferable, it's got to be mobile, and it's got to offer the protection. And other than the fact that we have different systems down there, we're going right back to one that offered essentially the same protection that in the final years of the Crusader. Do you have any comments now about just that one combat vehicle that we've gone through in that period of time? In your opinion, is it because requirements changed and then we end up where we started?
Well, I think one of the things we should start to think about is making affordability a requirement, because it's very clear if you think about Lancaster's law that total force effectiveness is proportional to individual weapon effectiveness times numbers squared. Yeah. And so the question is it affordable to get the numbers we need? And therefore, that's the unit cost. Why isn't that a requirement?
Well, let me do this because I'm out of time anyway. If you all wouldn't mind tracing that little history through for me, and I'd like to be very much to have your comments on how we ended up in that situation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.